Welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed our opening sessions and our discussions there on disinformation and misinformation today. But our next session is going to set us up for some of our breakout sessions this morning. We're going to be talking next about how to achieve food system transformation through vocational and professional training, looking at the skills agenda and all that feeds into that to create the future of what we're going to see in Europe. I'm going to hand over to the Education Director of EIT Food, Martin van der Kamp, to lead this discussion, since he knows better than most what's required for the next decade and going forward beyond that. Martin, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to leave our panelists and our audience in your capable hands.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and good morning to you all, and welcome to this session on thinking about skills. Very much a pleasure to have the conversation with you. This is really about being part of a broader conversation that is happening on many different levels around the entire food system, on how do we actually make sense of the emerging skills agenda. And so what we want to do today is actually to sort of bring in a couple of further perspectives that actually might help in prompting some real action across the food system. So I'm very pleased to talk to you about this. So, and I think it's a very good moment actually to remind ourselves that there are over 44 million people working across the entire food system. So that is in farming, food manufacturing, retail, but also HoReCa and other sectors. In the EU. And so it's very, very clear that they are a key stakeholder in the transformation of the food system. On the one hand, we need to consider what their future would look like under a transformed system, in that certain jobs may no longer be required. Whereas on the other hand, there are opportunities for new roles that are sort of emerging out of the changes in the food system. And in this sense, the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy, they set out a very big vision. And in this session, we really want to then think a bit about how does that trickle down into the work that needs to be done in order to ensure that we can deliver on this throughout the entire food system. And in particular, of course, where skills are considered. So the EU skills agenda, which is another key policy, of course, sets out a very clear ambition for reskilling and upskilling. And I think you may have already heard about the terms reskilling and upskilling coming quite prominently over the last couple of years as in key policies of the EU. To make the workforce fit for a green and digitally connected economy. So all the big policy documents are there, but then how do we accelerate and strengthen the specific skill sets and the acquisition of new ones, especially when significant sectors of the workforce they might be reluctant to embrace the change. And how do we make sure that actors can co-create solutions to impact and to make sure actually that they are part of any solutions that are being created and in that transformation? Or if they cannot take a proactive role there, that at least they are able to respond to the transformation and sort of in a way go along with the transformation. So in other words, kind of how can we make training relevant and fit for purpose? So we're talking about a reconfiguration of the labor market here. So this means transitioning people from one stage to another while remaining inclusive, and but also to make sure that the workforce is fit for purpose, as already mentioned. So for this, we need to sort of consider the implications at a policy level, at a training level, but also at industrial and at farmer levels. And so in this session, I'm very pleased to introduce our the panel to provide insights from all those angles to actually have a conversation about this. And please don't forget to put your sort of questions that you may have for the panelists in the chat, and we'll pick those up. The session is quite short, so we might not be able to pick up on all of the questions that are being posted, but please post them there, and we'll respond to those as time permits. So with that, then I would like to introduce all of the panelists to you. So I'm very pleased to have here with us João Santos, who is a senior expert in the Directorate for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion of the European Commission. We have Ondina Afonso, who is the Director of Quality and Research in SONE. SONE is, you may have heard of them, the Portuguese retail group. She's also the chair of the Continental Producers Club, and is going to talk more about their activities in that domain. And finally, John Edwards, who is Secretary General of Eurasia. That is a very, it's a leading network of universities of applied sciences. And so with that, I would like to invite João to speak a couple of minutes on the industrial policy which drives the skills agenda, and then how does this break down into different policy initiatives that help us shape the environment for upskilling and reskilling. João, over to you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and good morning to everyone. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the EIT for inviting us to be present, because quite often, you know, when we're talking about education, there's a big concentration on higher education and focus on masters and PhDs and so on. And quite often we forget the vocational and professional education and training as well, because, you know, we can have excellent strategies, we can have people with incredible research knowledge and PhDs and so on, but we need also, and I think that's where the majority of the people work, you know, people that are skilled, that are capable of delivering on all these strategies. And I mean, if we just think on the higher echelon of the people and not think about all the workers that are there that also need qualifications, then we're not going far in all our magnificent strategies. So congratulations for having a session focused on vocational and professional training as well. So I'd like in the next few minutes, just for this introduction, to mention what we are doing and what is our approach at the European level, in particular on the food sector. You know that earlier this year in May, we published the renewed industrial policy strategy for Europe, in which the agri-food ecosystem is one of the 14 chosen industrial ecosystems. And in that document, if you have the opportunity to look at it, you'll see that we've identified not only what are the big challenges in terms of the sector, you know, the kind of skills that are needed, what are also the big things in which it has to focus in terms of the green and digital transitions. But then we go a step further, not only talking about the industrial aspect, but also on how to empower people, both young people and adults, with the skills that are needed to help the transition of this particular agri-food ecosystem. And that is sort of encapsulated in our skills agenda strategy that was adopted last year, that, as I say, is focused on upskilling and reskilling and ensuring that people are equipped with the skills for these big green and digital transitions. I would say that, you know, we don't have a particular focus from a European level. We don't have a particular focus on any sector. I would say that what we want to do is ensure that education and training systems are agile, that are responsive to labor market needs, and these labor market needs change very, very often, that they are underpinned by quality assurance, that they are learner-centered, that we don't forget that at the end of the day, we're talking about people and equipping people with these skills. And of course, that the education system is very much engaged with the economy and society, understanding in what direction we are going and being capable to rapidly respond to those changes. So much more than having a model which sort of solves all the problems, what we really need is to have an education system that is agile, attentive to what is happening, and capable of responding quickly. And that's why we came up with the European Skills Agenda that you may know as 12 actions. I'm not going to bore you with details on all the actions, but just highlight some that I think are particularly important for the discussions we have today. You know that we've launched the Pact for Skills. It is a sort of a call for joining of forces and collective action and making people understand that the skills challenge is not only a problem for the education and training system, but it's really a societal challenge. I mean, if we just stand back and expect the education system to understand future skill needs and prepare everyone for these challenges, and businesses are not involved. And I think today you'll see a good example of how Sonai in Portugal, my country, by the way, is contributing to this. I think it's extremely important that we understand that skills, education and training, because of fast technological and societal change, we all need to be part of it. And I think the Pact for Skills is a call for action in that sense. I'm very happy to know that the agri-food sector is also very much involved. In fact, in February this year, you had the first roundtable. And as far as I understand, there will be a large-scale skills partnership for the Pact for Skills, which will be launched early in 2022. And I also know, once again, congratulations to the EIT, because you are one of the signatories of the Pact for Skills, which shows the importance of this initiative in order to mobilize for action. So, but also part of the skills agenda, we have the objective of strengthening, of course, skills intelligence. And I think our agency, CEDEFOP, based in Thessaloniki, is doing a fantastic job on that. If you haven't had the opportunity, just search for CEDEFOP and see what they are doing in terms of future skills intelligence, which is really quite a remarkable job. And this is important information for the education system to be able to respond to what are these future skill needs. I would also mention that under the skills agenda, we had a new policy through a council recommendation on vocational education and training. And part of this, there's the initiative on the Centers of Vocational Excellence, which is very close to my heart, which has precisely the objective of being a driving force for reforms in vocational education and training to achieve what I told you in the beginning. So an agile vet that is bringing all the relevant partners together, not only small and medium-sized enterprises, regional development authorities, bringing public employment services, and collectively creating skills ecosystems that respond to this rapid change of skills from the market. We also have, and I think the food sector is very much involved. We have a blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills, in which they, together, the various partners are trying to identify what are future skill needs and see how the education system can respond to this. There's a blueprint that is currently running, I think, since 2009. And of course, as part of this global package, and I will end here, there's two initiatives that the Commission is putting forward under this umbrella of the skills agenda. And in fact, we're going to adopt it on the 8th of December, next week, two very important initiatives. The first one is on an initiative on individual learning accounts, which will empower learners to engage in lifelong learning, in particular adults. And so this is an important initiative, as I said, on the 8th of December. And another one is a European approach on micro-credentials. So this is understanding that not everyone will need to go back to university or vet center to get a new qualification, but we'll need sort of packages of skills that people are capable of taking, also with the support of the individual learning accounts, and will help them in this process of upskilling and reskilling and engaging in lifelong learning. So Martin, I would leave it there as introductory comments, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Joao. And I think also already showing a lot of very rich detail of actually some very concrete building blocks that can be part of this conversation. So thank you for that. And we will come back to you a little bit later. But for now, I'm really pleased to introduce you to Ontina to talk more about the Producers Club that Sone has been running. Ondine, over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here. And very, very rapidly, we, as Martin mentioned before, we are the leading food retailer in Portugal, and we have this platform, we call it Producers Club. There is more than 20 years from now, and where the mission is to give them, to producers, to local fresh producers, technical and scientific support. And through many initiatives, we try to boost them innovation and sharing knowledge with them. And what we want at the end of the day, of course, is to have added value, fresh products in our stores, in our shelves. Just some numbers. This club has 250 members, which can be a small business family or producer organizations. Last year, we bought 260 million euros to them, so it's an important figure. And as I mentioned, during the year, we organize several events where we sit together, a commercial team, them, the producers, and some scientists also. And one of these moments is this initiative, the Academia, which is a training qualification program where annually we invite 20 producers to participate. So during 6 months, we have one session per month. We covering actually different topics from design thinking to sustainability, technology, management, quality, logistics, so many topics from our business. What we have, or our goal is to that producers know more about our business, our clients, and at the end of the day, they can bring to us new projects, new ideas, new services. And 2 weeks ago, we started the 5th edition, so it's a very nice project. And please, I would like to ask for play the video. It's just 3 minutes, flavor of what we are doing.
Qual é a sua motivação para participar nesta academia?
A qualidade da partilha de informação é muito alta, o conhecimento que a Sonai tem como um distribuidor muito sofisticado e em permanente estádio de investigação é muito útil para uma empresa como a nossa. E desde logo também porque eu, como fornecedor, quanto melhor conhecer as necessidades do meu cliente, tanto na procura como na oferta, melhor posso servi-lo.
Portanto, já aprendi imensas coisas, as tendências de mercado, para nós é fundamental. Somos uma empresa que temos produtos muito tradicionais, mas que é importante estar atento aqui às tendências de mercado.
Estou a gostar bastante de coisas extremas, temas da atualidade, nomeadamente a alimentação e as novas tendências, e estou a gostar.
Que expectativas é que tem no final destes 6 meses de academia?
Quem sabe orientarmos esta academia para uma parceria com a Sonai e poder desenvolver uma nova gama ou algum produto que diferencie realmente o que nós produzimos e do que de bom temos de citricultura em Portugal, porque não?
O desenho de projetos com um contributo inovador no capítulo da alimentação e, portanto, isso claramente é um ativo muito importante e um dos entregáveis mais relevantes desta academia.
Na sua opinião, qual é a importância da ciência para o negócio e em que é que contribui?
Eu acho que a ciência é a base de um negócio de sucesso. A ciência é o que sustenta, portanto, todo o desenvolvimento, toda a validação do desenvolvimento, inclusivamente, portanto, justifica a inovação.
A ciência é fundamental para complementar aquilo que é os conhecimentos empíricos adquiridos ao longo de gerações. No caso concreto, no meu caso, uma empresa familiar, começou com experiência acumulada de muitos anos e a ciência vem complementar aquilo que faz falta, não é? Que é apurar processos, apurar qualidade, apurar conhecimento, enfim, é fundamental.
Mas na área alimentar é crucial porque temos ciência desde há milénios atrás, portanto, eu represento o pão, portanto, eu sei que há 5.000 anos começou a nascer o pão com a mistura de farinha e água, portanto é que descobriram o que era o pão. Isso é ciência também.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so, Ondina, one of the things that strikes me in this video, and I think that's exactly what we're talking about, is that collaboration between different actors in the food system about skills development, actually, but to then also innovate as a process of that, and that actually goes hand in hand. And I think it's a prime example of how to rethink about how you would actually engage with kind of the part of the food system that you have contacts with, and to strike up new conversations and new initiatives. So really very interesting. We'll come back again to Ondina in a minute, but now I'm really pleased to introduce you to then John Edwards. John, as Eurasia, as sort of universities of applied sciences, there's of course a key role to play here. So can you explain a little bit more about the work that that you are doing, but also having that regional kind of connection there?
Yes, thank you, Martin. And that was an amazing story from Sunai. It's also a pleasure to share a panel with João, because he and his colleagues are doing an incredible job to implement the concept of vocational excellence through the coves. Now, I think one of the things that this approach shows is that what counts is not the level of formal education where VET is delivered, but what role it can play, in technological diffusion, providing skills for industrial transition, and supporting local innovation ecosystems. Indeed, I think we can see VET growing across all levels of education and types of institutions, including traditional universities. And this is no surprise to us at UASHI, because our members have been doing this for a long time. They cover more than 600 professional higher education institutions, such as UAS, polytechnics, and university colleges. I'm going to provide 3 arguments, Martin, about how I think education training is changing or needs to change to meet challenges we face, including the sustainable production and consumption of food. I mean, if we have time, but I know we're short of it, I can also give you a concrete example from a UASHI member and how this is happening. Well, firstly, though, everyone knows that society and the labour market are changing dramatically, and the so-called 4th industrial revolution is underway. And it needs people with knowledge and flexible skills in all sectors and occupations. This will ultimately rely on human capital in the broader sense. Graduates from all levels of education, as João was referring to before, who have the knowledge and entrepreneurial attitude, skills and competencies, who are capable of creativity and critical thinking, initiative and independent action, with, at the same time, technical skills. And this relates particularly to high quality professional education, which has largely been neglected in many countries, but is now increasingly recognised as a vital part of a multifaceted post-secondary education system. I think you can see that in my country, where with the disappearance of the polytechnic system 20 years ago, more. Now, it has the capacity to support innovation by this type of system. Professional orientated education has that capacity to increase productive capacity in high tech, but also mid tech and low tech industries. So that's the first point. The second point is about the approach, the pedagogical approaches, and in Bologna and the Copenhagen processes, which these are the frameworks for improving higher and vocational education in Europe. Both of them focus on the concept of clearly articulated learning outcomes, competencies, which I know that you, Martin, and in EIT Food are doing a fantastic job in developing in the food sector. This shifts the emphasis from inputs to the quality of learning experiences, with new methods like problem-based learning and co-creation, as well as use of new technologies, MOOCs and short cycle education as well, and micro-credentials that João was mentioning. These are changing the delivery modes and facilitating access to students, to different types of students who, let's say, had a barrier to entry before, and the COVID pandemic has only accelerated these developments. Thirdly, and the final point, you asked me to talk about this, so I will. It's about economic growth, depending, especially at regional level, on attracting and retaining high quality human capital, especially outside the global cities. And this is very important for the food production and processing industries. Colleges and universities, as well as other post-secondary training institutions, with strong professionally orientated curriculum, they're often located in smaller towns and cities, and they have stronger links to regional stakeholders. Ultimately, then, human capital is stickier than knowledge. Especially in less developed regions, the focus there should be to build competencies to absorb, use, and disseminate the new technologies, not necessarily create it. And this is what many people have argued for when considering European innovation policy. And it's great to see now, for example, that the EU's new regional innovation policy includes an objective on skills for smart specialization, industrial transition, and entrepreneurship. So they're my three takeaways, if you like, about the changes that we're seeing, the learning outcomes that are needed, and that regional emphasis that professional higher education can deliver. To save on time, I won't go into detail on the example I have. It's a Portuguese theme to the panel today. So the example is the Polytechnic of Bragança, and they've done an amazing job in developing these technical courses across the value chain of the food sector. But I will hand back over to you, Martin, now. And I can also go into more detail, anyone who wants to know.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you all for your comments. And I think put together, they really show a very interesting picture about actually that there is a lot that is happening and that is available to be picked up and to work with. Then I think the example of Sone is very inspiring in actually figuring out, okay, how do you do this in practice? So thank you all for that. Now we've got a question from Damien Jourdan from Open Innovation in Danone. How could we solve the generational challenge via education? And so he's commenting that senior executives in large businesses are still very much in the old paradigm, so very extractive and mechanical. And I would sort of add to that probably very linear in process, and preserving status quo. So can we achieve the changes needed by 2030? Without focusing on this kind of, but I think for me the question there is a little bit broader about kind of how do we make sure that even if we have inert or sort of inertia within the system, how do we overcome that, and how can the upskilling and reskilling agenda help with that? João, can I first ask you to comment on that?
Well, yes, besides the fact that we are also working on what we call intergenerational transmission of knowledge. It's one of the aspects in which we are working on. So ensuring that people that are leaving the sector, or these sectors in general, not only for the food, are capable of transmitting that knowledge to younger people. But I think that the biggest focus we have is on preparing both in the initial training, making sure that the kind of skills we are providing the young people through the qualifications are responsive to what labor market needs are, but also understanding how the adults that are in the market, which is the gross majority of who is already working in the labor market, how can we come up with solutions, responsive solutions by the education and training system that allow these people to upskill and reskill. And I think that is being done, and the fact that the food sector is joining the Pact for Skills. We've already had quite a few meetings with you, and I think this kind of work in which we are not providing a solution because we don't know everything of every sector, but we engaging and bringing the relevant partners together for them to find ways, because they understand better than anyone else, and the reality in each sector is very different, that you come together. And of course the European Union will support in financial terms. We are doing it quite substantial, I would say, already in Erasmus Plus, but also through the Recovery and Resilience Facility and the structural funds. And our idea is to put people together, understand what are the objectives, and then have the EU supporting and allowing you to deliver on what are the needs that you've identified.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for that. Ondina, so for you, what do you see working with the Producers Club in terms of that generational dimension? Is that something that you recognize, or is that something actually that you also have maybe some successes in that domain?
Yeah, it's interesting because we at the Producers Club, we have the second generation now. Since we began 20 years ago, we have the sons and daughters from many producers, and of course the motivation is completely different. and they also influence their parents to go through this academia and other events. So it's very interesting. The needs are completely different from 20 years ago, but our strategy is the same: is to share knowledge with them. Now we are focusing on new technologies and other topics, as you can imagine. But 20 years ago was just to bring some support in terms of production and quantities and food safety issues.
Yeah, so it really is about that evolution of, but using those existing infrastructures and keep on transforming them while sort of making sure that those assets are really coming into their own, as it were. Thank you, John. Final thoughts from you on this intergenerational kind of component there. What are your thoughts from your perspective here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to upskill the older people. I mean, I don't think we can just wait. You know, people are working for longer. We do have this demographic challenge of aging, but I think we can't just rely on the younger generation. And you know, so adult learning is, you know, incredibly important, and that's, you know, why all institutions have to change to meet the needs of, let's say, the non-standard student, and working in house with companies, I think, as well, not just doing it in our own institutions, especially because companies don't want to let their management, their staff out for a long time. I'm sure Andina will appreciate that. Therefore, I think those tailored solutions for firms is what we need to develop more.
Yeah, so and that is, I think, indeed the key where all actors need to come together to actually really understand those needs. Thank you. Looking at the time, unfortunately, no, because this conversation, I think, could still run very happily for another half hour, but the allocated time is finished. Could I ask you, each of you, just in 30 seconds, what for you would be the main takeaway, but maybe sort of articulate that in the form of either a challenge to the audience or an invitation to the audience, so that we've got something that really inspires action. João, can I again start with you about your thoughts?
Sorry, I couldn't. I had interruption of the sound. I didn't understand your question. Sorry.
We just would like to have a final comment to the audience. But maybe in the form of either a challenge or an invitation, so that we inspire to action.
Yes. Okay. You know, I think an important element, and also for the colleagues of the EIT that are listening, there's I would say, excessive focus on you know, skills and everything has to do with innovation exclusively on the higher education sector. I think that's good. We need that. But I would call on everyone to think about, you know, the people, the gross majority of the people in the food sector that in fact don't go to higher education necessarily, don't even need higher education necessarily, but are the ones that can make a difference in the sector, are the ones that will need to acquire new digital skills, are the ones that will need to understand what does the green transition mean, what does it mean for what they are doing, and focus on these people as well, and see how the organizations represented by John Edwards in ERASHE and all the other vet providers in vocational training, be it at upper secondary level or post-secondary level, all that these people can offer to the sector to ensure that you are competitive and you are capable of responding to future needs. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Andina, your final thought or challenge or invitation?
Yeah, we need different models, indeed, different models of partnership, and to spread this type of a partnership based on knowledge. And nobody would think that a retailer would develop a partnership directly with the fresh producer. So I think it's a good example.
Thank you very much. John?
Thank you.
Yeah, just to say that here in ERASHE, we are cutting across all types of levels of education in a cross-sectoral basis. And so all you EIT people out there, we want to hear from you, we want to work with you, especially from business. So please contact us, and we're ready to help you to design better educational solutions for your sector.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Joao, Andina, and John. It was a very much pleasure to have this conversation with you this morning. And thank you for your very rich insights. And with that, I would like to close this and hand over back to Jennifer to wrap this entire session up. And I think to send people off to the network break. Jennifer.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, Martin. As you say, we are going to have a networking break now. Please do use all the functions on the platform over the next 20-25 minutes or so, because we will be back at 11:30 with a couple of breakout sessions. You've got 2 breakout sessions for this block. We've got Bridging the Gender Gap, Innovating Innovation in the Agri-Food Sector. That's on stage A. And on stage B, you can join me and Martin as well to talk about how skills drive the transformation of the food system. So please pick your breakout session. Do enjoy it. Have a great conversation. And we'll see you back here at 11:30.